Hey everyone, I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and I need you to just stop faking disabilities. All right? We represent people with all kinds of workplace discrimination, obviously, and that includes, of course, people who are being denied reasonable accommodations for their disabilities in the workplace. And I always love that particular kind of case because it's helping people to get back into the workforce, to get back their identity, get that feeling of being a useful part of society, able to further their own interests, not reliant on the government or charity to get ahead. It's a really beautiful thing to get people the accommodations they need for their legitimate disability. It's a feel good hit, and I'll never get enough of it. I'm pretty sure it's always going to feel amazing. And I'm really open to what a disability is, right? I'm probably one of the most liberal human beings in the world in terms of, hey, I've got this medical condition. Do you think it's a disability that deserves a reasonable accommodation? Federal case law, federal statute, local and state statutes, they might not always agree with me, but I'm going to almost always think, yeah, I think that's a disability. And if your doctor thinks you need an accommodation for that, I'm willing to fight for it. And as long as it's not frivolous, we probably will fight for it, right? Right now, though, getting maybe 30, 40 calls a day from people who are doing one of two things. One, and the much more, I think, innocent of the two, is people who are self-diagnosing themselves with a disability. They feel some kind of way, right? And they have some thoughts on what might be causing that. And so they call me up and they say, hey, I've got this condition. I've got this disability. And I need an accommodation. Right now, the really common accommodation everyone's going for is work from home because a lot of people don't want to return to the office or the work site post-COVID, right? Post the COVID vaccine. And now that almost anyone in the US who wants the vaccine can have it, employers are starting to call employees back to work. So I get a lot of people calling me up and saying, hey, I've got this medical condition. And I mean, we're hearing so many different medical conditions, right? And some of these are very real, right? I self-diagnosed myself. I think I have an immune condition. Great. Go see a doctor. Well, I know what I've got. I don't need a doctor. Yeah. Okay. Are you a doctor? Got it. No, you're not. Okay. Yeah, nobody cares what you think, right? It's just not. Oh, you're a PhD? Well, stop calling yourself a doctor unless you're actually a medical doctor. That's ridiculous, right? Stop. I have a Juris Doctorate. You know what I'm never going to do? Call myself a doctor. Why? I'd be a jerk if I did. Stop. If you're not a doctor, don't diagnose yourself. Don't call yourself a doctor, and don't diagnose yourself. It's really that simple, right? Doctors are medical doctors, unless you're a scientist in your specific industry working, right? PhDs, I understand that's a doctorate, not a doctor. Okay, so people don't want to go to a doctor. Okay, seems dumb, but you do you, right? You do you. And in some jurisdictions, people are going to be like, well, I don't need to go to a doctor to get diagnosed with a disability to apply for reasonable accommodation. Maybe under some case law or some, but I'll tell you what, even if that's true in your jurisdiction, and it's not really true in your jurisdiction because I bet you can't find an attorney to take the case on a self-diagnosis in that jurisdiction, right? But even if that's true, how much stronger would your case be with an actual, experienced, competent medical professional testifying about the accommodations you need? I cannot stress enough. Stop self-diagnosing. It's innocent. I understand. You got some feels, you got some thoughts, and those are valuable. You take the feels, you take the thoughts, you take them to the doctor. You have a conversation with a professional who does this for a living about what you need to go and be successful in the workplace, right? Now there's a second group of people. There's people who just don't want to go back to work. And they want to call us up and they want to say, yeah, I got this disability. And we're hearing a lot of different ones. And people generally know better than to try to fake immune conditions, right? And the reason why they want to fake the immune condition is um, a lot of this centers around, well, you don't need to work from home anymore because you can get the vaccine now. Anyone in the US who wants the vaccine can have the vaccine. Well, they're going to say, well, the vaccine doesn't work for me because I'm immune compromised, so I can't go back to work. Great. Go get a letter from a doctor. Oh, you can't? Okay, you're not immune compromised. The other thing people are doing, they're faking anxiety conditions. Now, anxiety is a really real disability. Unquestionably, there are people who suffer from anxiety horribly, and those people need accommodations to be successful in their workplace. Please, never, never, ever think that I don't believe that. But if you're just some jerk who got a diagnosis of some faked up anxiety condition so you can get your medical weed card, and now you're sitting there and you're thinking, I got this diagnosis, which I lied to get, and this doctor thought it was no big deal, so she or he gave me the diagnosis because they just wanted to help me get my weed card. But now I can say I got this anxiety condition, and even if I had the vaccine, it's still going to cause me too much anxiety because there's still this 5% chance I get COVID even after the vaccine. So I'm going to say I need a reasonable accommodation for my knowingly faked anxiety condition. You're a jerk. I would use stronger language, but YouTube would censor me. Yeah, you're hurting people with real disabilities. If you're not so anxious about returning to work that you can barely function at the thought of it, and yet you're pulling that card, I'll never call it discrimination. I hate people say, oh, play the race card. No, that's a discrimination case, jerk. Here, it's a card because it's fake. Right? It's only a card when it's fake. You don't actually have an anxiety condition. The people who I'm talking to, they know I'm talking to them. And they know exactly what they're doing, right? You don't actually have an anxiety condition, or you don't have an anxiety condition to such an extent that you actually need an accommodation. And so you say to yourself, well, I can still demand an accommodation. And even though I know it's fake, I don't care. I want to work from home. Okay. How does it feel to hurt every single person with a real anxiety condition in the entirety of the United States who has to work? How'd that feel? Feel good? Feel like you're a nice person today? You're hurting people. You're hurting people, right? And if you want to say, oh, well, I don't want to go back to work, there's still a chance I could get COVID. Sure. There is. I understand it's something like a 5% chance you could still get COVID. I will note, even if you do still get COVID, it is extraordinarily unlikely to be a very bad version of COVID or a fatal version of COVID, thanks to the help of the vaccine. So we probably have to have a conversation about whether or not you were aware that infectious diseases did exist before 2020, right? Because your risk with the COVID vaccine, very similar to your risk before COVID existed at all, right? You could get the flu and you could die from the flu. That was a reality. It's still a reality. You can still get the flu. You can still die from the flu. I'm not comparing COVID to the flu, but I am saying once you've had the vaccine, the risk of COVID is not so different from the flu. So what's changed now? What's different? I think you really need to think about what you're doing before you fake a disability. It's not a good look. You are actively harming people. Good luck out there, everyone.